everybody. I've been thinking about this interview all day long and how I'm gonna handle it. This one here is something special. All of them are special. But this is so special, my friends, that I put on a shirt and tie and a suit. And you're gonna understand why when we get to the end, when you hear the end of the story. You're gonna understand why. Not that it's any more special than all the other ones and stuff like that. But this is gonna touch home to our guests. But until we get there, subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button. Hit the notifications button. Hit the bell. Hit something so you can be a part of the Strong Inspirations family. Come on. Because I'm bringing it to you, and you know what I'm about to say. I'm bringing it to you straight, no chaser. I don't do the talking. I let them tell their story. I just come up with maybe one or two questions and try to move it along. Now, you all know that I got a movie out. It's called Business in the Black, The Rise of Black Business in America. And one of the things that we talk about in this movie is what racists did to destroy Black business districts because they was just mad at brothers and sisters rising up and self-preservation. You can't even let us do our own thing without getting mad. 75 minutes, that's one of the topics. If you don't have a DVD player, it's streaming on Amazon. And as you might know, I wrote the book to go with it. And again, this talks about what the racists did to us. And it's amazing for no reason a lot of times, just accusing somebody of something for whatever reason they wanted to. It's on Amazon. It's on my website, inspirationsbystrong.com. Go to the website, folks. Get one, get the other, get both of them, and you'll be happy. And if you get the book, I'll autograph it. That might mean something one day. I'll autograph it. But like I say, I'm in a crazy kind of mode right now because I got a beautiful sister that's coming on and she's excited. She got personality. Let me tell you something. Brains run in her family. Brains run in her family. Brains run in her family, and you again, and it ain't just her. It go deeper than her, and that's what we're gonna talk about today. How deep it go, and then what happened in her family. So hey, come on now. We're gonna smile until we smile again. We smiling because we got a beautiful day and the world is all right on Strong Inspiration. So come on, sister, let's roll. Tell us about yourself and who you are and all that stuff.
Well, Anthony, I just want to thank you for having me on the show. I am an attorney out of New York City. I attended the great Howard University.
Oh, I told you she was smart.
Yes, Temple University and Temple University School of Law. And I practice in the area of family law throughout the 5 boroughs of New York City.
Ooh, that's heavy. So now, was you like a smart kid in grade school and you got all A's and all that kind of stuff? Was you one of them kind of sisters?
I would say I was more of a B student until I got to high school. And I think that's when things begin to really click for me and I began to enjoy school and started achieving A's and honor roll and that kind of thing.
In high school? Man, come on. Usually that's when you kind of slip a little bit because you hanging out. You went the other way.
For me, that's a late bloomer because my sisters started much earlier.
I told you, brains run in their family. So then you went to law school.
Yeah.
Was it hard passing the bar?
It was probably one of the hardest experiences of my life, but God was with me. I had to study so hard. I have to tell you something, Andy. The one and only time that I ever experienced a nosebleed was while I was preparing for the bar exam, because that's how much stress, how much of a pressure cooker situation it is, how much work you have to synthesize and understand, and then be able to put out to them.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Got a nosebleed. You was reading so much and writing so much,
and studying and doing everything I could to pass that exam.
Man, that's all. But then you were committed that much to getting there, though.
Yes, indeed.
Because law school takes how many years?
Law school takes usually 3 years if you go by day and 4 years if you do the night program. So I did the 3-year program in a day.
Whoa, you handled it, and you was at Temple.
Yes.
Which is no joke school, everybody. I told you, brains running a family. So now that's when I say they running your family, let's go back. Who has some more brains?
Well, I have, unfortunately, I have a sister. I started in practice with my sister, Michelle Middleton Bond, who was a graduate of Howard Law School. She passed away due to breast cancer, but I've carried on, we've continued on with the practice with her spirit with me. Our mother, I have 2 sisters who are also educators. My daughter is a recent graduate of Spelman College, of the great
some high-end schools.
Oh yeah, it was a whole lot of money.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Worth it. She came out a semester early, so she saved us a semester of tuition. My husband is also a graduate of Temple Law School.
Whoa.
And my mother is an educator. And before her, the first person on my mother's side of the family who achieved a bachelor's degree is my mother's grandfather, John Millings, who graduated from the great HBCU, Johnson C. Smith College. This is a picture of John Millings.
Okay, y'all see that, right? Y'all see that, right?
Yes, I believe this is on his wedding day to my great-grandmother, Marie. And they were happily married for several years until
something happened.
Yes, something happened.
So now he went to college. What years you think that might have been?
Well, John was born around 1894, 1895, thereabouts. So it would have been in the early part of the 20th century.
Yeah, that might have been 1920s.
Exactly, somewhere in like the mid-20s, and he studied chemistry. He was a brilliant chemist. He was a person who was very enterprising as well, and so and you have to remember, this is during the era of Jim Crow, so it wasn't quite opportunity for jobs wasn't quite available to someone who had a bachelor's degree in chemistry. So he was very enterprising and finding other ways to provide for himself and his family, and so what he was doing at some point in his life was selling produce on the side of the road, somewhere around Remont Road area in North Carolina.
All right.
And he was quite successful at this, doing quite well in terms of taking care of himself, his wife. And at that time they had 4 children.
Okay, hold on. Before you go into that, because that's going to lead into the other part of the story.
Oh yeah.
Hold on. So he graduates in the 1920s with a chemistry degree.
Yes.
Because he's got an aptitude for science.
Yes.
And math.
Yes.
And did you know what he wants to be? Does he might have wanted to be a doctor or something like that? Or
my understanding was that he wanted to actually become a chemist and possibly move into something like pharmaceutical science and with drugs and that kind of thing to help people in terms of their medications. But the opportunities were so deplorable during that time period for young, aspiring Black men that he really had to find other means of surviving and taking care of himself and his family.
Yeah.
John, he came from as you probably could imagine, being able to go to college, he came from a successful family. They owned quite a bit of land in the Charlotte region, as did my great-grandmother, Marie. And so their ability to take care of themselves was not as much of a problem for them as it might have been for others.
I got you.
But they still struggled with the difficulty of not being able to achieve their full aspirations and full potential because of
Okay. Now let me make sure I got this right. This is your mother's what?
My mother's grandparents. John is
he's your grandfather.
He's my great-grandfather.
Your great-grandfather.
Yeah.
And he comes from a family where your great-great-grandfather had a lot of land.
Yes. During those times, land, I'm told, was not as valuable as it is today. So it was not a great difficulty for people to, amass their monies and galvanize their resources and make sure they own the land. And, a lot of people coming out of slavery, this is something that, a lot of American history does not tell us about our people. But one of the things that a lot of the individuals who came out of slavery wanted more than anything was to own the land that they lived on. Having been owned themselves and now being free, they sought immediately to try to gain a foothold in the American economy by owning land. And because of the nature of the economy at the time, land was not as expensive, so
Yeah,
they
sure,
could
sure.
acquire it and acquire quite a few acres.
Now,
I
where
think
is this? Where is this?
in the Charlotte, North Carolina area.
Okay, okay. So now, do you think he got it because when slavery ended, his owner had to leave and it just gave it to him? How do you think they got the land?
My understanding was that several people were blacksmiths. His father was a blacksmith. His father's brothers also were skilled laborers, and they were able to sell that labor in order to amass the money that they needed to then buy the land after slavery ended.
Oh.
From the federal
Okay,
government.
now let me go to this. So you a blacksmith, then you like really got your own business.
Exactly.
And from what I gather, blacksmith were them people who could use metals and conform things to make stuff.
Exactly. He was his father was an excellent smelter, was able to create different tools that were necessary for people who were in that agrarian kind of society. He was able to do a lot of things. So they were very resourceful. And this resourcefulness didn't just exist inside of my family. This is a common thing among many of the individuals who came out of slavery. They came out, many of them with skills, many women were master seamstresses, certainly master cooks. Many of them hid and learned how to read and write, so that when the freedmen schools started, they could go immediately into the position of being teachers. A lot of our people, despite the oppressive nature of their conditions in America, always fought to have some kind of knowledge of something that they would be able to trade on the open market to be able to take care of themselves and their families. But America does not, our history.
Yeah, I got you.
The general history does not consider that fact. That does not remember that part about our people.
I got you. Now, so I guess this leads to the question: who are they trading with? Are the white people supporting them and buying what they do? Are they doing business with white people? Do you think, or what?
In many instances, they were. In many instances, they were trading, because a lot of times what happens is that if someone was very good at what they did, if they were the best in town, they could really kind of move out white folk in terms of others who might have been a source of competition. I mean, if you think about the history of Howard University, just as an aside, their law school and dental school, the dental school particularly, was so good that the dental school began to give Georgetown University School of Dentistry competition right away, because Black excellence, when it's allowed to be unfettered and it's allowed to rise to its top, many times it exceeds the excellence of the dominant group. And of course, there's pushback. That's why you had the Klan going around burning people's towns, and that's when you get Tulsa and places like that. But our people had many skills that they were exemplary at. And for my family, it was a lot of, as I said, John with chemistry, and his father with smelting with metals and blacksmithing. Yeah.
But I would think, though, to a little degree, that melting them metals was kind of dangerous, though, too, because you're dealing with that heat and stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm thinking I've seen them like at the museums. They do a little exhibition or something. And my man, that's what he is, and he's dealing with the heat and had to melt it and got to have the goggles and some safety stuff.
And you can imagine they probably didn't have goggles at the time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but to be a proficient at that, to want to learn that skill, that goes back to maybe when they were slaves or something like that.
Exactly. And it just speaks to the strength of our people.
And then you got all this land. Were they doing farming on the land? Did they built the house on the land or whatever?
They were building, they were doing farming. They lived off the land to a large extent. And that's another thing about our people, is that, we were very healthy in terms of, growing your produce, living off the land, raising your cattle on that land, and trying to be as much as possible self-sufficient. So, they lived on the land. If someone got married, a wedding gift would have been, the building of a home, because they knew how to build. Okay, the building of homes on the land. When I was a small child, about 7 or 8, I could remember seeing the home that Marie, my great grandmother, where she was born. It was partially burnt down, but part of it remained. And I was told that the family built that for Marie's mother. Her name was Victoria when she got married. So
Wow.
we have
So, and I can imagine that, with that type of wherewithal, owning land, house, and stuff like that, that made you kind of a big man around town too, among other
exactly,
Black people.
exactly, exactly. And my family did a lot to try to assist other people. Another aspect of what life was like in those days is that Black people understanding that Jim Crow and racism, the structural racism being so entrenched as it was, there was a spirit of trying to help one another. So people galvanized as much as possible. They united and formed churches. They united and formed schools, and other facilities that were needed in order for them to establish their own communities. And they were very much self-sufficient. Um, as I told you, Marie's father, Charles H. Parker, who was born into slavery, he established the church, which still stands today, Moore's Sanctuary, which is an AME Zion church. He helped to
Wow.
establish that church. He also helped to establish the May James Presbyterian Church. Both of these are in the Charlotte region of North Carolina.
Oh, wow. So was he a preacher, or he was just a Christian kind of guy and wanted to be a part of it?
A Christian person who believed that Christianity meant doing something, not just saying something, not just saying you're a Christian. It means doing the work of
Oh
Christian.
my God, that's beautiful. Now, the
Yeah.
one thing that is still kind of amazing, and you're alluding to this, is that even after slavery ended, Black folks had money.
Yes.
Somehow they got some money, and I talk about it in my book.
Yes, you do.
Do you know? Is there some stories of how your grandparents got money to? I mean, other than the blacksmith, I guess they would, like you said, he was a slave. Your great great grandfather was a slave.
Yes.
He came out with a little bit of money. Did he buy his freedom, you think, or what might have happened, or it just ended?
I that much of the story has been lost to us as to how he came about his freedom, whether it was bought, or whether or not 1865,
Right.
King. But we do know that he sold a lot of the produce that was on his land, and that was one source of income for the family. So that along with some other things that they did, my understanding is that his wife taught. She taught school, so that was another source of income. They helped other people to build houses. In that era, the ability to build a home, we think about that it's very foreign to us today, but the ability to build a home was something like almost like a rite of passage. A young man had to know how to build a house.
Oh, really?
In fact, my father, he's deceased now. He knew, he was born and raised in South Carolina, but he knew how to build home. So a lot of these skills that we think about, today, were just, you were supposed to have these things. This is what a father taught his son.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's the resilience of Black people.
Yes.
That's why I call this strong. We some strong folk, everybody.
Yes, we
and
are.
So they passed that education down. Did your grandfather, your great grandfather, did he know how to read and write? Or he went to college.
My great grandfather attended Johnson.
But do you think his father knew how to read and write?
I believe that he did. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe, my suspicion is that he did, and probably certainly knew how to count more than anything, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow, that's incredible.
Well, as I said earlier, the family did a lot of work in terms of selling their produce, and John found a spot. I believe it was somewhere near Remont Road, and he was selling.
Let me stop you. John is your great great grandfather.
John Millings, yes.
Okay, right. Okay.
And I have. Do you see this picture again?
Yeah.
I love showing it. I love
see it.
And he was selling produce, and his success caught the attention of a white man who was jealous of that success. And this man told him that he was now taking over that produce business that he had going on, and so he wanted him to leave his belongings and move on. And John was the kind of person, you probably could tell in this picture, that he wasn't exactly the moving on type. And so this white man smacked him across the face. And what John did was he picked up his shovel and he he hit the white man in the face with it.
Ooh, hold on. He had to knew that there was going to be some consequences behind that right there. He had to think, but he was just that mad.
Yes, and the family says, you know, there's always a lot of stories in families, and the family said that he had a temper, and of course he does at some point realize that this is going to present a problem for him after this man falls out, and so he immediately picked up, he and my great grandmother Marie, and they fled to Savannah, Georgia. And they reestablished down there in Savannah, Georgia. They're there for about 7 to 10 years. My figures are rough. But at some point, John's sisters, he had 2 sisters, they informed him that their father had passed away and they wanted him to attend the funeral. And he left. My mother explains to me it was by horse and buggy at that time. And he left and was never heard from again in life. Not by my family, his wife and children in Savannah, Georgia, or his extended family in Charlotte, North Carolina. No one ever heard from John again or saw him. Oh my
God.
And
so he left by himself.
He left by himself to attend his father's funeral. And my mother often talks about this story. She was not alive at the time, but for her father, my grandfather, Frank Smith, was. And he said that he remembers people sort of whispering about this situation. The Black community would whisper about the tragedies that were happening to them because of the fear that was instilled in them by the monster that was Jim Crow, and this complete and absolute power that the white power structure had over them.
Okay, now let me ask you this. Do you know if the family that was back where he left had, you know, anything happened to them? Like, we gonna beat you up until they show up or whatever?
My understanding is that nothing happened to them, thank God. And so to this day, we do not know. There was never a body found. There was never any evidence of his belongings found. But one of the things that my grandfather, his next to the oldest son was my grandfather, Frank. And one of the things that my grandfather, Frank, told my mother was that there was this area that people would whisper about and talk about in hushed tones.
What do you mean by area? Area in the city, in Savannah, area in North Carolina? What do you mean by area?
Area in South Carolina, a wooded area in the South Carolina region, which separated North Carolina from Georgia, okay, in which it was a notorious area where lynchings would occur, and that thousands of bodies, corpses were found there, skeletal remains were found there. And the suspicion is that he may have somehow misstepped and gotten into that area and was lynched that way.
So y'all know he didn't make the funeral.
No, he did not. He did not. He did not make the funeral. He never made it back to Savannah, to his family, to his own family, or to his relatives in North Carolina.
Wow. Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And so there's no way of knowing, because again, all this is sketchy at this point, if he ran into the white guy to hit him, or it might have been he was just on the road and some other white guys might have got to him. There's no way of knowing that, right?
There's no way of knowing that. There's no way of knowing it. All we know is that he had to have met with foul play. And what's the saddest part about this story is that he was not the only one who experienced that. Is that this was a common practice in that era with regard to Black people. That's how little our lives matter to this nation, and how little protection we had from the law, that it was common practice for people to just go missing. And you knew that when these people went missing, they would say they were grabbed by the white folks found them. They were grabbed by the white man.
Now, what area is you talking about? Is this the 20s?
This is the 20s. This is the 1920s. So you're talking about shortly after the new Ku Klux, the second wave of the Ku Klux Klan is established, not the civil rights wave of the 1960s, but the second wave that they established after they have a meeting on Stone Mountain in Atlanta, Georgia. They reestablished themselves around that time in the 20s. And what's interesting about this time in the 20s is that you got the World War I veterans, the Black veterans are coming home.
Yeah.
And you've got all that's around that time when Tulsa happens, and when Forsyth County blacks get run out of Forsyth County, and you've got I believe Rosewood happened around that time. So that they called 1920, I think it was, the bloody summer of 1920.
Yeah, right.
So you know, because you're a historian, so
Yeah,
you know,
right.
we were being slaughtered left and right without the government or any police entity being concerned in the least.
Is there any way that I don't know about now or back then that there could have been some investigation as to what happened to you, or that's it?
That's precisely what would happen. That was it. If you went to the police, and this is the reason why people spoke in hushed tones, because to mention the mere mentioning of something happening to your loved one, and the thought that they might have met with foul play in a sense of the Ku Klux Klan or some other white supremacist group finding them, might have brought the law down on the head of the person who is seeking redress, who is seeking help from the state. The state might have come, the police might have come and arrested that family or harassed that family. So Black people conducted themselves in a very clandestine kind of manner, where they would, like I said, whisper the stories that happened to their loved ones and speak about them in hushed tones, but they at all times put on a poker face and pretended that nothing was wrong, everything was fine.
Could they have a funeral for him in his honor, even though he wasn't there, do you think?
I don't believe that they did. I believe that they would have felt it was a danger to do so.
Wow.
The mere acknowledgement of the wrong was enough to cause the force of the law to come down upon a Black person's head.
So, okay, my last question before we kind of come to conclude. So this happens. So let's say the funeral was on a Saturday. He leaves on a Thursday.
Yes.
He doesn't show up. And then and there's no cell phones or nothing like that, you know, I mean, no way to communicate. So exactly. His wife back home is waiting on him and waiting. She might wait 1-2 weeks and figure something happened and that's it.
Exactly. And she received a telegram from the family members in North Carolina asking, well, where's John? And so she telegrammed back to them. I thought he, was there. And so this is how they find out or learn that this is some foul play must have befallen him.
How does that go down to, I'm gonna let this be the last question if you don't mind. How does that go down through the family? How does that get, I mean, not just to you, but how does that happen to his sons and daughters that he had to say, okay, daddy's not coming home? What's that dynamic mentally?
It crushes his family. It crushes his wife, my great-grandmother. It crushes his son. He had 3 sons and 1 daughter. It crushes them. And what he becomes is sort of like the ghost, the specter that looms over this family, but with a question mark. What happened? What happened to him? And you can imagine that is a very, very huge burden to place upon a young wife and her children growing up, not knowing a thing about what happened to their father, but knowing what, in general terms, what had to have occurred. And so my mother's actually raised by Marie, and she describes her as a quiet, very Christian woman. She relied upon her faith, but she said, my mother said she would pray. She was a loud praying woman. That's what my mother called her. She said she would pray, talking about what happened. So she would, Lord, how am I going to make it? My husband's been killed. Lord, help me. Lord, help me. How am I going to make it with these children? And she was constantly praying about situations. And unfortunately, Marie, this wasn't the only lynching that Marie experienced from a loved one. And so she clung to her faith, and she prayed loudly for the Lord to hear her. She believed in praying and open where people could hear her. So the family could hear her. It was so much for her to endure.
Ooh.
It was so much for her to endure.
Oh man, I know this is hard for you to tell this story, because do you feel something? I know it's a lot removed, but did you feel something in this I know you're gonna say yes, but can you explain just a tad bit, please?
Well, what I feel, I'll tell you how it's painful for me to think about what he had, what those moments were like. To be surrounded by people and know that they're about to take your life, and know that no one will know what happened to you, and no one will get a message back to how to find your body. That's one pain that I feel. And the other pain is for my great-grandmother, because she lost her husband when her children, my uncle Mac was, Matthew is his name, but they called him Mac. He was 2 months old when this happened. So they robbed this young family. His daughter, my Aunt Rose, was 2 years old. My grandfather rather, Frank, was about 8 years old. His brother, James, was about 10 years old. This young family is robbed of this vital, important piece of them and ripped apart because of racial hatred. And so, you know, it's my feelings are that a lot has changed in this nation. We are fighting for racial equity. I'm glad about it, but we need to tell the stories of the past, because we never will reach the point of equity until we acknowledge what happened in the past. We cannot cover up the past.
Wow.
I wanted to thank you for allowing this story to come out, because it's forums like yours and books like yours that allow, and I'm going to raise the book and put it.
You got a copy of my book, folks.
Yes, that allow these kind of stories to remain alive.
Yes.
And to be able to be passed down to other people to hear what happened.
Ooh, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Hit that subscribe button, folks. If you don't hit the button right now, I don't know what's going to do it, but whatever's going to do it, I'm coming at you again. I'm coming at you again. So you can subscribe to this channel. You can hit this like button, hit the notification button. You can tell somebody about Strong Inspirations. I thank you so very much for being on the show with us and taking time to tell your story. I know it's deep to you and your family. Yes. Please stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind, bring them families back together, because she got a book out. You got your book right there?
I do
tell
not.
Us, just tell us. Don't go no. Just tell us about
2 books. I have for women, it's Girl, Get That Child Support. And for men, I have Boy, Drop That Child Support. They help people deal with all those family court system issues.
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. Get the books too.
Yeah.
Get the books. All right, everybody. Thank you for being on and watching us here on Strong Inspirations. I told you this was going. I told you I was wearing the black and white. Now you know why. Because if I would have been there and I'd have had something to know about it, or there'd been a funeral, I'd have worn my black and white. Thank you so much. Have a strong, beautiful day. And we out. Bye-bye.
Thank you.